Yo, 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 it's your boy Nikki Duce, aka Mr. Black Podcast himself, and this is No Disrespect.
Hi guys, Zimani.
This is AJ.
It's TP.
Yep, and this is, I mentioned in the last episode that we were, like this upcoming one, we was gonna do a music review. As everybody who's followed the show, we do a lot of music reviews, but this one is different in particular because, y'all, it's been so much, no pun intended, good music dropping that we just got to touch on it. You know what I'm saying? And with that being said, we gonna get right into it. With the concept of these good music reviews, and the way these albums are being rolled out is 7 songs. What do y'all feel about that approach? Like with 7-song albums, shorter albums, is that something that is going to be like? Are we officially seeing the start of a new trend, or this is more just like an exception? Like this is just what it is. Like we got to take this as a moment in hip hop.
Did each of the good music albums have 7 songs on?
Yeah, so
that
far.
Structure for the summer.
Taylor had 8.
Yes, to answer your question, just because in the type of society we're in right now, we are in the short, the short attention span type of society. So it's like if you have too many songs in an album, unless you're like a diehard fan of that person, like I know some people who listen to the Chris Brown album through and through. I wasn't one of those people, so I'm not a diehard Chris Brown fan. You gotta really like take your best songs, put it on an album and say, here, this is what I'm presenting to you guys. Now, if you want more, I got some more in the vault. Back in the day, how many songs used to be on an album? Maybe like, 12? Between
15,
like 12 and 15.
16.
See, I feel like even that's too much now. Like if somebody can't go on like a quick like 2-hour road trip and go through your album, it's too long at this point. It's too long.
I would say that back in the day, like if we talking about like early like 90s and shit, like it was like 20 songs, like, and some of them had to do with skits. So like if you want to be honest, maybe it was like 16 or 15, like you said.
When you say skits, you mean those little like interludes they would have in between?
Or like people would be talking about some shit. Like Kanye's first album had skits.
Yes.
So it's come back again because in the streaming era, you starting to see people put like 20 plus songs on their album because for one, the more songs you have on your album, the more listens you're going to get because people want to hear your whole project. And the more streams you have, the more album sales you get. So it's kind of like a domino effect of why you have so many songs on your album in 2018. Now, what is different about this is that since it's 7, it's easy to get through. However, some people's critique of it is that it's too short. Like how can you get a full message of an album or a concept album in 7 songs?
If you structure it right.
I think the way that this was rolled out was perfect just because Kanye produced all of this. So like it's a lot to ask of somebody to produce more than 7 tracks for one particular project. And he may very well have produced more tracks than we know of, and he might just put the best 7 for each artist. But, you know, by him producing all of these tracks, he got 3 albums coming out consecutively, and the Tiana Taylor album came out as well. So, like, that's 4 albums. He's putting out all these different albums. It's a lot of projects, a lot of songs. And when you really think about it, it's like 24, 20, 30, somewhere between 30 songs, somewhere in there. Like, he's producing all of these tracks. That's a lot to ask of Kanye West to be producing that. So, I think it makes sense for the way he was doing it and the way he was constructing it.
And plus, Kanye been a minimalist since like Yeezus anyway. So I feel like the Pablo was just like one of those what is it called? Like one of those like random albums that was just
he had a lot of songs in that album.
Like a lot of songs. But I feel like this is what he's going to be on for like the next like 10 years. I feel like this is way ahead of his time at this point. Like the 7-song theory, this is way ahead of this time. Like I feel like 10 years from now, that sound is everybody's gonna sound like Yeezus at this point.
It's a lucky number. Take your best 7 and run with it and just put that out there into the public and just see what the reaction is at least. Even if it doesn't work, he's at least the first person to like test it out and see like, okay, is this the type of thing that people are going to be into? And if it gets, which it has been getting a lot of good feedback, there are some people who complain it is too short, but if the music is good, I have no complaints.
And people are looking at it as like, this is the reinvented Good Fridays. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like back, you remember everybody used to love the Good Friday joint. Like he dropped a song every Friday of the good music camp or people who are affiliated with it, and that's how we got the songs like Mercy. That's how we got New God Flow, stuff like that. Like those type of records. So people like that, and they've always wanted to see that come back. And he's now doing it like, all right, y'all like that. Now I'm giving y'all full albums every Friday, and that's something that's dope in my opinion. But to me, Kanye has always been the person who has to break down the door for everybody to get in. Because when he dropped 808s. It led to a lot of niggas with the stylistic of that movement in hip hop. When he did Watch the Throne with Jay-Z, you saw a lot of people start rapping on the dub, or collab albums or do dubstep rap. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like he's always been the person who, at first everybody said this is trash, and then later on 5 years like, oh, it's a trend. It takes a while to grow. So that's probably the only good compliment I'm gonna give Kanye.
Hence why
right
he says he's a genius. Why? That's why he says he's a genius though, because he does make I think he makes good business moves. Whether you agree in terms of if you like his music or not, that's subjective to each person, but I think that he is very smart in the sense of he knows what to do next for his career and for his people, at least, you know?
I disagree. I think he does the opposite. He makes very artistically motivated moves.
That's what I was going to say. He makes very creative moves.
He makes creative moves. I don't think he's necessarily a good businessman. Jay-Z tried to get his man all this money, and this nigga shafted him. So, this man's business sense ain't where it need to be, personally, for me. I think he's one of the greatest creatives of our time. I think he is a genius in that sense of being an artist, but business-wise, like, he does a lot of fuck shit, man.
And let's be granted, and another critique about these albums is that the way they come out. Like, you expect the album, when somebody says my album's dropping on Friday, as soon as it hits, like, midnight, the album's out. We've been waiting, like, I waited 2 days, or I waited a whole day for Tiana Taylor's album. I waited, like, a whole day for Nas's album to come out. I waited a whole, there's been a delay. And, like, it's all for the, quote-unquote, form of art, or like, let me be this artist. Let me show
free-flowing thought.
Yeah, free-flowing thought and all that stuff. Like,
but is there like a criteria as to when something has to get dropped? Like, if I say I'm going to release it on Friday and I release it on Friday, it's Friday.
But
I did it.
But if you don't release it on Friday, then what?
No, but they have released it on Friday. The argument is that they didn't release it at midnight.
Did Tiana's album get released on Friday? Or
I'm not sure.
I don't think
I got it this morning. I saw it this morning.
I saw it on Saturday.
Yeah, I saw it on Saturday.
Ooh. That's a whole different argument. If you just didn't release the thing on the day you said it was going to be released, that's a whole different... Yeah. And Tiana can't afford to really do that because she's really trying to get her feet wet in this whole music game.
Well, she already got her feet wet. The thing is that they pruning right now. So I hope this project really does her justice because I think she's been long overdue.
Heard good things about it.
But now since we talked about the concept, we all kind of, we might not all be fucking with it all the way to the extent, but at least we're interested. So let's just talk about his album, the Ye album.
Ye album.
What are y'all first reactions?
Off of first listen, it wasn't his best album, but it was definitely better than Pablo, for sure. I think the controversy kind of hurt it a little bit, although I don't understand people's response to it. Like, this is something new that Kanye has been doing, or something just completely random. But I feel like Kanye has been doing controversy. He's been doing these type of marketing schemes to where he would just cause some type of big uproar and then sell an album and then get off the map for like a year. I feel like it's the exact same thing with the slavery comments. I don't agree with them, but I'm like, bro, like, I don't
like,
really
this is
care.
Typical Kanye.
Yeah, it's
like,
just like some Kanye shit.
shit.
But I mean, it's stupid to me, but like, whatever.
The album was different. So like when I was listening to it, I'd be like, oh, okay, I like this song. I always listen to albums in the car because I feel like the bass helps it in terms of my judgment. So I'm listening to it, all right, this first song is good, and it'll go to the next song. And I'm kind of like, okay. And then it goes to the next song, like, all right, I like this one, I like this. So it was very like up and down for me. And it was only 7 songs, so there wasn't really much room to do the up and down thing. But I like Pablo better. Mm-hmm. Me personally, I like Pablo better. I did. Mm-hmm. In terms of his recent music, definitely, I know Pablo was a little bit longer, but just in what was on the album, I liked it.
For me personally, I'm gonna just get all my hate out the way, like in the beginning, because normally, like, I still do think this man is a genius. I think this nigga is a beast. Like, the fact that he produced all of this work, like, kudos to Kanye, because, like, that shit was, the music in and of itself was fire. The content of the bars and all of these things, like him talking about his being bipolar, and I'm not gonna spoil it for those that haven't listened, they're still mad or whatever. I think that, like, it's an important album. It kind of explains why he was doing some of the shit that he was doing. But Kanye being so egotistical to do some of the things that he did with this rollout, with the Confederate things, like he was trolling essentially, talking all this Trump shit. Like, that's. Personally, for me, that shit was taking it too far. And I think there is some significance to that and why he chose 7 tracks for each one of these things. The Life of Pablo was based off of the Apostle Paul, the descendant, like one of the disciples of Jesus Christ. I'm kind of getting deep because it's Sunday. So, he kind of compares himself to Paul, who was supposed to have been like that nigga when he was back living during them times. Like, he was the second, like, and it was Jesus on this level, or like the top tier, and then it was Paul. So he kind of compares himself to Paul. And I think the number 7 is significant because for those that aren't familiar with like biblical scripture and stuff, I'm kind of getting a little deep. So I'm going to just kind of give you a very, very bare minimum perspective. The 7 sons of Sceva is a story in the Bible. The 7 sons of Sceva represent something that it was the sons that was like hating on Paul for his fame that he was getting because he was following Jesus Christ. And, Paul got all of this notoriety and everybody knew Paul and everybody loved Paul. I think Kanye is more representative of the Seven Sons of Sceva. The Seven Sons of Sceva got shitted on eventually in the Bible because they was bearing false prophets. They was trying to get all of this fame and notoriety. They was trying to do all of this crazy stuff because they were trying to get fame for themselves. They were not doing it in service to Jesus Christ. Kanye kind of represents that, in which he's trying to get all of this fame for himself. He claims that he's a Christian. He claims that he's doing all of these things for the people, for the betterment of the people. And he's trying to uplift the race. But I think he's doing this for self-fulfillment, self-fulfilling prophecies. And I think his ego is going to get in the way of him reaching the level of fame and the service to God, which he claims that he is promoting. He's not really doing that. That's why I hate on Kanye for what he's doing. I think he's personally just... his ego gets in the way of his fame. And I think for me personally, that's what I was turned off to this project and some of the things that he's done.
I mean, but what has changed, though, since the beginning? You know, like you had the whole...
I'm not going to say from the beginning, since ever his mom died. I feel like that was a switch. There's something there
that's
just kind of...
That's a good point.
You know, because he didn't start off this controversial. He was just a boy from
late registration. Like, late registration, he was definitely going off on people saying he should have won awards and all types of shit. So, like... graduation happened, he definitely eclipsed 50 Cent or whatever. Then his mom, he had 808s, but like obviously he wasn't the same after that. But what I'm saying is all of these controversies that he's been doing, the speaking out on everything, the George Bush incident, the Taylor Swift incident, the like any type of awards that he didn't win, like it's nothing new to me.
Right.
So I don't understand like the whole backlash from it because we've seen this from the beginning.
We're in a sensitive time.
Yeah, well, I think it's a polarizing time, and I think that's why people are so mad right now.
You would think he would understand that it is a sensitive time, and you just shouldn't say certain things because we've talked about this in other podcasts before. People are mad sensitive. You can't even have an opinion anymore without somebody being like, "Oh my God, I'm offended." Like, no, it's just my opinion. Yeah. Like, you don't have to follow what I'm saying. I'm just saying what I'm saying from my experiences. But you would think that Kanye, being the quote-unquote genius that he is, he would understand that and just, like, take a step back for a second. Like, just quiet your mouth. But you know what? You know why Kanye's acting like that? Because he don't have no black woman in his life. Because if he had his mama or if his wife was black, he wouldn't be doing half the shit that he's doing. Kim is just sitting there crying like, Kanye, oh my God, our career. Like, no, take him by the neck or something. Like, shake this man.
Come on.
Dude, like, he acting up for real.
My thing with this, all right, so... with this album, I would say my critique of this album is that it's a horrible album in Kanye's catalog, in my opinion. When we talk about where Kanye started to where he is now, I think with Kanye, the reason why we always bring back his old projects that we don't really usually do for other artists is because his catalog history is classics. Like, he has more classics than probably, I think, arguably Jay-Z. But for his catalog is so revered as far as like for us, because we grew up on him. Like, if you're in the demographic of like at least 30 and under, you most likely either grew up with Kanye in college when he was spitting College Dropout, or you grew up in like in middle school and stuff like that. So you aspire to be a college, like you want to learn more about the world. So when you hear him from there to now, it's kind of like you see Jordan when he was winning championships with the Bulls to when he was playing with the Wizards. It's like, it's a different Jordan, but you still want to look at him as the Jordan who was winning. So with this album, I would say that there are a couple tracks that are good, but the bars and the bars have gone down dramatically. Even I like Life of Pablo better than this album, but even then you were starting to see like his bars wasn't hitting like you talk about Late Registration, which I think is my personal favorite album of Kanye's. When you hear Diamonds, if you play Diamonds of Sierra Leone and you compare it to Yikes, like it's very lackluster.
Do you think he spent so much time investing in the other good music artists that he kind of just like...
No, I think it's this. I think when we talk about what changed with Kanye from College Dropout to now is the people around him. And you mentioned black women, but I think it's just black people in general.
You don't got no black people around
When he was in College Dropout, who was he around? He was around the most hood niggas you could be. Rockefeller, Dame Dash, and you know how pro-black Dame, or like how pro anything Dame Dash is, and you know how pro-black Jay-Z is, and it's just like, when you surrounded by that early on, that's why his early albums sound like that. But as his fame, as AJ was saying, as his fame has increased and his ego has stayed the same, if not gotten bigger.
His circle has changed.
His circle has changed. It was the Rockefeller era. Then it was the early good music era with Common and John Legend and Cudi. And then when all them niggas left, it's what era do we have now? It was the Kim K era. And now you see in his lyrics, it's affected, his lifestyle has affected his music, in my opinion, to his detriment. And that's where a lot of people who always say we missed the own Kanye, that's what we talking about, is because we clearly see.
And he takes it as a joke too, making music talking about.
And we clearly
making music about
change.
it.
And we also got to talk about the elephant in the room, that Kanye don't always write all of his bars. So when we talk,
or you know so, or
I know so. He mentions it too. That's why he dropped that voicemail at the end of Violent Crimes with Nicki. Like that was the same line that he used in the song. Like, and he's never mentioned that. He's never said that like I write all my bars and it came out. It was like it's like a Dr. Dre thing, a Puff Daddy thing. Like other niggas write for you.
Got it. Okay.
And you just
they don't write everything.
Yeah, they don't write everything, but they
Okay.
write some things for you. And for me, it's like when he first came out, he was with Rhyme Fest, Talib Kweli, Mos Def. That's where you see that pro-black stuff. Then when you got into the later half, it was the Cudi influence. You heard like, that's why 808s and Heartbreaks, it was like T-Pain, like they were a part of that.
This album sounds a lot more like 808s than anything else that he's dropped.
But this album also sounds like a nigga who has a disconnect. And granted, he has a medical condition, but that still doesn't excuse his disconnect. Because to me, it's very convenient, and I'm not trying to disrespect people with mental illness, especially black people, because I know as black male, we don't really come out like that. But it seems very convenient that when you start talking about Trump, it's like that Roseanne
like you
shit.
said all that shit.
Like Roseanne talking about some, I said all that race shit because I was on, I was taking some medicine.
Yeah.
And it's
nobody trying to hear all that.
Like nobody trying to hear all that. Like if he was, I want to know when he was diagnosed with bipolar. Right. And I feel like it was earlier than this album. And I know that for a fact because during the Charlamagne interview that I know a lot of people watch, Charlamagne talks about the album that he played me then sounds nothing like what came out. So to me, it's like agendas changed because after that, the Charlamagne interview came out, it was TMZ. And then once he said, I made this album post TMZ, that's where he made the slavery comment. That's where he already talked about Trump earlier, but he never talked, like once he made the slavery comment, that's when niggas was like, all right, I'm done with this.
And he knew that.
And he knows.
I think Kanye's kind of playing to a different crowd than most people in hip hop too. I think he's not playing to the traditional crowd that a lot of others may be playing to, because like Kanye has kind of transcended a lot of different people's glass ceilings in terms of fame. Like, I'm not gonna go so far as to say that Kanye is on like a Michael Jackson level, but he damn near approaching that shit, man. Like everybody fucks with Kanye, not just black people.
Right.
White people fuck with Kanye all over the world.
Only white people fucking with Kanye right now.
And I think he's cool with that. Like I think you talking about he's disconnected. Like I don't think he's disconnected. I think he's just said,
he's very aware of what's going on.
These niggas ain't fucking with me no more. Shit, I'm about to go get my money elsewhere, and he's fine with that.
I'm only saying he's disconnected because the people like T.I. and like the black people who we're looking at now, like okay, they represent hip hop in the light that we kind of would like. They've spoken with him and they said that he wasn't aware of all the shit that Trump was doing. He was only mostly talking about Trump as the persona, as someone who was a disruptor. Because as we mentioned, like you just said, Kanye has been a disruptor because nobody expected him to get this far in his career, let alone be this successful. And now that Kanye always likes people who disrupt. That's why I think he signed Cudi. That's why I think he aligns himself with certain people, or he married a Kim K. Like these are the people that are exceptions to these rules.
He likes to be a unicorn, man.
Yeah, he likes to be something that you ain't never seen before. Like what black person is really rocking with Trump?
Yeah, that's why I say, like, from a business perspective, like, he's not doing the things that a traditional business person would do. He's doing things that a creative would do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think he has every right to do that, but I think it's a mistake to identify him as some, like, genius in terms of understanding how markets work and all of those type things. No, he's just riding his wave. He does whatever he feels. And
I said he's a creative genius, though. I didn't just use the word genius as a general, because to call someone a genius as just like a general term, that means you're a genius in all aspects of life. Like, that means I expect Kanye to sit down, I give him a test in front of him, he can go through that test easily.
And I don't think he could, he has the intellectual capacity to understand a lot of things he's talking about.
Yeah, he knows music very well, but that's all.
And I think he's heavily influenced, as much as he's been an influence to the culture, I think he's been influenced by people. And when I mentioned that the writers that he had from the college dropout era to the 808s, Yeezus era, to even now, the pop life of Pablo, it's like, you look at his circle around him, and it makes sense.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
To why he's
it makes sense that you are pro-black around the Mos Def, Talib Kweli's Rhyme Fest. It makes sense that you are experimental with sounds in an alternative hip hop R&B way with 808s and Yeezus and stuff like that. When you're around Cudi and people and Travis Scott, and now in Life of Pablo, Kim Kardashian era, it makes sense that you're in areas and fields where there's not a lot of black people around you.
Right.
So when there's not a lot of black people around you and America's a majority white, majority of America voted for Trump. You know what I'm saying? It's like, nigga, it ain't that hard. You get 2 + 2 = 4 all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like,
But part of me be wondering, like, Kanye, are you just doing this for the clout too? Like, are you just saying that you're a Trump supporter just because you know that it's gonna stir up something in the black community? Are you doing that? You doing that on purpose?
Absolutely.
Like, he's not really a Trump supporter, but he's just doing it because he know, like, well,
I think he's genuinely a Trump supporter in the sense that Trump is his friend. Like, I think like he was cool with Trump before Trump got elected. He was cool with Trump.
But to be a devil's advocate, a lot of hip hop artists rapped about Trump before this shit, and now they trying to turn their back on it. To me, it's just like you was rocking with it, but people. The reason why I say they
when you say talking about Trump, you mean like the fact that he was a billionaire? That's before he was even running. He was even political.
Like he was a dude to reference. Like people made hip hop references about Donald Trump in a positive.
He was a status symbol.
This before. That's what I'm saying. This was before his any political run.
But now people are backtracking and saying, "Oh no, he's always been a piece of shit." I'm like, but then you was rapping about, like, you know what I'm saying? Like that's why I'm like, nigga, I ain't trying to hear that either. You just trying to be.
Kanye kind of comes, like, he talks a little bit in this Charlemagne interview about how he felt some type of way about Obama not fucking with him, because he said some of the statements around the Taylor Swift time where he was talking all that shit.
Why didn't Obama fuck with him?
Obama was not fucking with him. He called him he called him a jackass, and like he was kind of framing him like, you know, Kanye felt some type of way because he personally knows that Obama really fucks with his music. Like, Obama puts Kanye in his top 5 like all the time, and Obama being from Chicago and him not giving Kanye the same platform as he gave all these other rappers that was coming to the White House. He let Kendrick come to the White House. He let Cole come to the White House. He let Jay-Z come to the White House. He let Chance come to the White House. He let all these people come to the White House, and Kanye never got his shine. With an ego like Kanye West, and you're not going to meet the first black president and like be cool with him publicly, like, that does something to somebody.
And to me, if we're going to bring it back to the music, I think what people were looking for was an explanation. And that's why I say this is horrible for his catalog, is because at least what I was saying before this album came out, I was like, bruh, the music got to be fire. Like, you can't be saying all this crazy shit and then the music not fire. Like, I'm expecting Kanye to be like spitting some shit. So when I hear 7 songs, I'm like, okay, that's cool. And he's releasing all these
that's
albums.
even more reason to think it's about to be fire.
Exactly, like, because you ain't got that much shit to say, so you better use your words wisely. And then when you hear, like, the first track on it, like, I Thought About Killing You, where he's basically having this monologue, it's like, okay. And then when you hear him rap, it's like, it's very like ABC-ish. Like, I was with my cousins. It's like, granted, I always think he has one of the best flows in hip hop, period. But it's just like, if you were to spit those same words, I'd be like, bro, you garbage. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
if it wasn't Kanye,
would you really like the lyrics?
But I mean, are you really listening to Kanye for the bars though?
Again, I said Dynasty early on.
You may have 10 years ago, but now, nah, not so much.
You're not listening to Kanye
I've always had faith, and that's why when I said in the last podcast, like, I've become more of an objective music listener, because since I did grow up with Kanye, I've always had I've had that hope, like, oh, he's coming back, y'all, don't worry. Like, and it's like, nah, nigga, like you said,
I understand.
That was an era of time. That's why Jay-Z has that famous line, like, if you like my old shit, listen to my old albums. Like, if you're not on his new shit, then don't complain. Like, you can always go backtrack. But for me,
you have to rap up about where you are in your life. And that's what Jay-Z was talking about too. Like, I'm a totally different, I'm making millions now. I'm not that same person back then that I am now. I got a wife now, I got kids. Like, my whole dynamic has changed. So I could see why Jay-Z would make a statement like that. Does that same thing apply to Kanye? Like, do people still give him
I don't mind the content changing, but I don't want the quality to change.
Okay.
I think about, like, there was an episode of Atlanta, like, I always come back to this episode where Donald Glover I think it was that weird-ass episode where he was, like, dressed up in whiteface or whatever.
The Teddy Perkins
episode. He was talking about how there was a small scene where he was talking about how hip-hop is so confining, like, it doesn't really grow. It hasn't really grown as an art form. It hasn't matured or anything like that. And I've been thinking a lot about that since I've seen that episode, just in terms of, like, how the art form has grown, who's hot now, who was hot 10 years ago, and what they've been talking about, what the style of rap and all of these types of things is. Kanye doesn't really fit the mold of what rap looks like right now. Like, I really feel like, you know, he's a trendsetter for sure, and I feel like a lot of people follow his example, but from a perspective of where he's coming from and how he makes his music, we listen to, like, see people saying, like, we listen to his music for the music. We're not listening to for the bars. And I feel like he's not going to fit in those confines of what rap looks like, because he can't compete with the guys that are truly, like, with bars, like Coles and Kendricks and all of those people, he's not gonna compete with them.
But I'm not. I would agree with that statement if he wasn't successful already off of that.
But he was successful in a much different era, though. I think he was successful.
So you're saying that since the era has changed,
I think he's matriculated as he's grown up. Bars is not much of a. It's not something that he's going to be excelling in.
Look at the state of music right now.
That's what I'm saying. You don't have to have good bars as long as the beat is good.
But we just mentioned that the top 3 niggas in rap, 2 out of the 3 got bars.
But we're talking about today, though.
That's today.
That's today.
You can't name me 3 niggas that's better than
a lot of
Cole,
niggas ain't trying to follow them. They can't compete with them.
There's little babies out here.
They not fucking with them.
Hey, shout out to Trouble. He had a fire album. Edgewood was a fire album. I don't know. To me, it's just like Jay-Z hasn't lost a step, right?
I disagree.
Okay, we'll get into that. But to me, Jay-Z hasn't lost a step. If anything, he's come harder than I've heard. Like when you think of the best Jay-Z, people think of Blueprint. And then when you think of the worst Jay-Z, you think of Kingdom Come. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So when I think of the best Kanye, before this album came out, I was thinking, since it's my favorite, or objectively, it was My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. To me, that was
I love that
product.
album.
I think that was the peak of his
that's plush everything.
But that's because he came out with that visual aspect of it too. That's when that was coming.
But for his worst, my thing was his worst album before Life of Pablo came out. His worst album at the time was Yeezus, and even then,
personally, I would have said 808s, but that's.
But I'm just saying. But even if you said 808s, look at the lineages that it came. Like Drake mentioned, early on, Drake said, if it wasn't for 808s, I wouldn't really know where I would be in hip hop. People have gone to that album backtrack and say that album was very instrumental to a lot of. As you mentioned before, maybe mumble rap is. I mentioned Wayne, but you could put Kanye in there as well if you want to count 808s. But it's just if that's your worst album and it was still fire, then that says a lot about your catalog.
Yeah.
So when you hear
Kanye's a legend, don't make no mistakes.
So when you hear albums you got to be you're getting worse as time goes on, and I'm I can't champion you anymore until I see you do better, and that's all aspects. But
not even
music
do
to
better.
lifestyle.
That's what I say. People, the way you keep your fans in terms of music and stuff like that. Okay, so because everybody has that one album that's not as good. You know what I'm saying? You can't have gold every single time. But it's if on your day-to-day basis, all you're doing is talking shit, then you're just making it hard for me to just support you in general. I would stay a fan with you if you just stop running your mouth for a second.
But that's not what Kanye.
That's what
I'm saying. He's gonna lose a lot of what she
literally
probably
ever
care
since
about.
he came into the game, everybody told you to shut the fuck up.
Right.
You fuck with your beats, but shut the fuck up. That's what he heard everywhere.
I feel like he feels like he has nothing to lose because he has such a big demographic and he has so many fans, whether they're black, white, Asian, Indian, whatever it is. He has so many people that even if I make this comment, I lose a few fans. Oh well.
He's still gonna sell.
Yeah,
as
whatever.
you can see, he still has a #1 album. All the things that he's dropped has been #1, #2, #3 on iTunes. So it's nothing has changed at the point.
It doesn't matter what this man says. Yeah. It does not matter. He said something about his own people. He said stuff about other people. He's attacked other people's careers. I'm just talking about me as an individual who has been a Kanye fan. And, just like I said, this hasn't been my favorite album of his so far. But I would still support him if the things that he does on a day-to-day basis I could support. And because I can't support that, and your music's not good, you're giving me nothing to work with here. Now you just lose me as a fan altogether.
Facts. I guess we got the sentiment of Ye. It was cheeks for most of us. All right, so let's move to Kid See Ghost with the collab with him and Cudi. Now, out of all the releases that he mentioned on his timeline on Twitter, this one was the one. Okay. This one and Nas's album were the ones that I was I'm ready for this shit. Because if we talking shit about Kanye, let's keep that same energy with Cudi. Ever since Man on the Moon 2, I'm sorry, it's been since then, you want to keep it a buck, let's keep it a buck. There was a couple albums that you all right, Indie Cut, that was probably kind of cool. Since then, I can't. Speed and Bullet to...
I personally...
Speed and Bullet to Heaven was Speed and Bullet to Hell to me. It was just...
To be honest, I haven't kept up with him after that Man on the Moon too.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was no reason to. There was no reason to. So when you think about, what was the best Cudi I've ever heard, it's Kanye. It was when he was with Kanye.
I don't know a lot of niggas that's huge fans of Cudi.
I was a huge fan of Cudi.
I ain't never really fucked with Cudi like that. I was excited about this project because I know that they made really good music together. Yeah. So I knew that it was gonna be sonically, it was gonna be hitting. But I wasn't really excited because I thought Cudi was kind of cheeks anyway.
Well, I've always thought that Kanye was like, you know how what was it? Like Snoop always sounds good with Dre. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how there's certain, like, Biggie sounds good with Puff. You know what I'm saying? There's certain artists that you just sound good with and, and they bring the best out of you. And it's just like, with Cudi is like, when he dropped Father Stretch My Hands Part 1, it was like, where was this Cudi at this whole time? You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, we always a credit to Kanye. So when you hear like, oh, Kanye and Cudi coming out with a collab album together, I'm like, all right, bet, I'm all for it. And after first listen, I was like, this is as good as I expected it to be, but with Kanye and Cudi in 2018, I was expecting more. So it was a good album. I just expected more. So I can't really say there was a bad track on it because my favorite track is Reborn. That was like classic Cudi to me.
That shit goes hard.
The Kids See Ghosts with Mos Def on the hook was like, that shit was like.
That Fourth Dimension, like, it's some hits on there,
and to me, it's like, Kanye spit harder on the Cudi album than he did with his. And it's like, what's up with that? Like,
I think Kids See Ghosts was kind of an extension of one of Kanye's tracks, Ghost Town.
Yeah.
And I think like that same energy that he brought to that track, Ghost Town, on his own album, he brought that throughout the entire project.
And to me, that's the best song on his album.
Yeah. And I think it was like, it was real transparent and it talked about a lot of different shit. And it was like, it really kind of explained all the shit that he was talking, because he mentioned a lot of things about like fentanyl and like all of this crazy shit that he was doing. Like, and I'm thinking like, damn, Kanye, you really strung out right now, bro. And, you know, he comes out with this Kid Cudi album, and Kid Cudi's going through his own personal struggles.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think that blends well together. It's a lot of depression. It's a lot of sorrow. Like, I feel like these niggas was drunk for most of the time they was making this shit, but it came together, and it really sounds, I'll go so far as to say it sounds beautiful, man. It's good.
As bad as this sounds, like being I guess a selfish fan, I feel like we'll never get another Man on the Moon 2 until like Cudi get on coke again, quite honestly. That's bad.
Yeah, bro, you came me on a
I'm sorry, bro. Like,
get the needle out.
But you're saying that there's certain like
it was a mentality that he's had, like, for Man. It was a certain level of pain that he was enduring for Man on the Moon 2 that he hasn't been enduring since then. So we're not gonna get that same.
Yeah, we're not gonna get that.
We're not gonna get that no more. So we gotta appreciate it.
I kind of agree with that because, but I don't want that to happen.
I don't want
like
to
take it
happen
a
for
step
sure.
down. Like there's people who smoke before they write lyrics,
or even
just
then,
it takes them to a different mental state.
Or even legends in other genres, their best music came out when they was either coked up. Like, look at Ray Charles. He was fucked up, but he dropped some, bro, that big, like, what was that? What kind of, man? Like all that shit, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the shit that he was playing on Cosby Show is like, that was when he was fucked up. Like, he had to get off the shit to even live. So, I agree in certain aspects that certain artists on drugs sound a lot better when they are sober. Now,
I didn't even know Cudi was on coke. Well,
I think everybody in the music industry is on coke.
Yeah.
But to a certain, like, either you done coke or you're on coke.
I think there's beauty in the madness. Man.
Yeah, I think right now when you have two crazy, like, I guess you want to quote unquote call them crazy, because they mentioned that on the album, like watch how you call someone crazy. Mm-hmm. It's like when you put these two creative geniuses together, something is bound to happen. Like, granted, I hope there was no substance abuse during that process of creation.
Kanye don't need that right now.
But it was just like, but it was something beautiful that came out of it. And to me, it was like, this album is what I really wanted Ye's album to, like, I wish he didn't drop the Ye album. I wish he would have just dropped him.
I wish he would have
Cudi.
kept that shit to himself.
Yeah, exactly. It was called Day, and it should have been like, put that over there. Like, that was for you.
You played in your house on your
Yeah, exactly. Just like I always say, For Your Eyes Only was for Cole's ears only. I keep it the same energy. So, like, I guess we all can agree that Kids See Ghosts was a good project. Like, that was outside the Pusha T the album, this was like the best one since that one.
I think the only album I can't help but to compare this album to Cole's album, just because like Cole and Kanye kind of been not beefing, but they've been kind of at odds with each other.
I said that in the last podcast. I've always said that Cole's been wanting Kanye's spot for a long time.
Cole's been coming at Kanye for a minute, and I feel like it's kind of been solidified. It's come to a head.
I missed that
this year. I think this year.
And lyrics and stuff like that.
Well, obviously he had that song called False Prophets.
Okay.
Which, he addresses Kanye. But I've always said that that Cole will never be the best rapper alive. Like, I know to Cole fans he is, but in reality, he's not. But the one space that he can excel in is being the best rapper producer ever. And right now, there's only a few artists that you could put in that category, like
who can rap and produce.
Yeah, like a Q-Tip, like a Big Crit, like who else? I'm probably missing a few others. Maybe was it MF Doom or like
Doom, yeah.
or like or I forget. There's others obviously, but like when we speak about it, there's only like a few you can mention. So if Cole can say like, all right, bet who's the best, who's the greatest nigga who's a rapper producer? Somebody would say catalog wise, it's Kanye. You know what I'm saying?
Most would say Kanye, I feel like.
Yeah, most would say Kanye.
But I feel like niggas, they like really fuck with like hip hop like that. I feel like they would probably come at Cole. And the reason I think about this is because Cole been coming at Kanye since like when Yeezus dropped. Cole came out with Born Center the same day. Like
I remember that.
Exactly.
He was trying to compete. He was trying to say like, I'm taking your spot, nigga. I'm coming for you.
He said it as in a way like it was a backhand compliment. Like, oh yeah, you the best out right now, so I want to compete with the best.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like, okay, that's what hip hop is built on. It's about competition. So yeah, that's cool. And he got like, and this is when Yeezus dropped. But to me, it's like Cole always comes at Kanye when he's at his lowest, not at his highest.
Right.
Because he could have done the same shit when Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy came out, but obviously he would have got blown out the water.
He wasn't ready.
Because at that time he dropped Sideline Story, which I think is one of his worst albums.
He was just coming out there. I mean, it's no excuse, but you know, he was just coming out.
Exactly, and that's why, and that's why I'm saying like, and that's why it's easy for him to come out now. During the pro-Trump shit that Kanye's been on.
Because everybody's against Kanye anyway. Like,
it's easy.
The reason I say like Kids See Ghosts kind of reminds me to a certain extent of KOD. I think they address similar topics in terms of like addressing the drug epidemic and all like your approach to that. Whereas Cole kind of comes at it from like, you know, you got to kind of wean yourself off of this shit. You got to come back to reality and you got to get away from this shit and start like doing this meditate thing or whatever. That's one perspective. That's one way you could approach it. Whereas Kids See Ghosts is kind of like, you jump out the window. You should quit your job to this. Like,
he said, fuck it.
like he literally came out with that track. You should quit your job to this. Like that shit was, it rubbed me the wrong way at first, but then I realized it's two crazy niggas. Like, you know.
No, if I want to play devil's advocate to that line, it's more about like, what are you working towards? Like, what are you putting your all into?
But
and if you're not putting your all into
free.
yourself, no, he said I feel free as far as like, I'm now in the mental space to where like, I don't really, because like we always talked about, Kanye lost his mama. I don't think he really addressed that like in a healthy way. Cudi has been going through some drug abuse issues.
And he lost his dad too.
And he lost his dad.
Yeah.
Like, so it's a lot of shit that these motherfuckers have gone through, and as black men in America, it's hard. We don't ever have real safe spaces to show those emotions or to deal with that trauma. So when they say I feel free, I feel like they're talking about like I'm feeling free of that burden of those hardships. Like I'm now in the best space that I've ever been.
But I can also hear all the cocaine that's in the room while they're making this track, bro.
fucking weak.
It's so much cocaine happening like in that damn room. Everywhere, bro.
We gotta hear both sides.
It's all type of shit going on.
The real question is, does cocaine make you free?
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
So those are ones I've never experienced that, so I can't even talk on it.
I've
but-
always said the
talk on
herb is the worst. Mushrooms would probably be the worst I do, but herb is all I need.
I'm not gonna
Right.
get. I got it.
We ain't gonna go in
I got it.
Yeah, we not. All right, we
My mom listens to this.
We're getting back. It's a pro-black podcast, so we can't even talk about drugs.
Hold on, bro.
So with Kids See Ghosts, I feel like everybody, they at least liked it a lot more than the Ye album.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's go on to the next album. So we're gonna go off a little bit of this good music path, and we're gonna talk about the album that fucked everybody up. That wasn't scheduled, that wasn't anticipated. Obviously, we gotta talk about Queen Bee and Jay-Z. So,
I have a question about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I've never seen this. No, because I have never seen this happen before. Somebody start a tour before the album got dropped.
It's happened before.
Okay. What's my question? Just how does that dynamic work? Do you just switch up your whole tour? Like, so say you had like 10 cities you were doing, then you drop the album. Do you just switch up the whole dynamic of the tour?
I think if you want to talk about this, it's more of they started the tour on the European side before they came to the States. They dropped their album on the last date of their European tour before they come to the States.
Okay.
Jay-Z and Beyonce, their biggest demographic is in the United States, I would say, as far as their fandom. Granted, they're a worldwide phenomenon. Beyonce is worldwide phenomenon, but she always talks about Houston. He talks about New York. Those, in my opinion, when you specifically keep talking about those locations, your main base is in America. So it was smart for them to drop a new album, because I asked on Facebook in 2018, do we need another Jay-Z Beyonce tour?
I said no.
Yeah, so now we know why, because now we know that the collaboration album came out.
They knew what they were doing.
Exactly. It was all designed. Now, as far as the album itself, it's a trifecta album, meaning. So there's a lot of angles I'm gonna come out this album, but right now I want to focus on the trifecta. So it starts off with Lemonade, right? So we find out that
Jay-Z, that's what you mean by that.
Jay-Z cheated on Beyonce, right? And we have a whole album about how she's dealt with that. The second album was we find out how Jay-Z
his point of
view and why he cheated. Now we have the end. So now you have the end of it of Everything Is Love.
We're a big happy family.
Big happy family we made up. The one thing I always bring up is the 48 Laws of Power or some shit like that. I've read little excerpts. I haven't read the full book, but I will. But it's always like, when you're talking about these artists, like a Jay-Z and Beyonce, they are the apex of hip-hop and R&B, right? So, and they have an extensive catalog. And what we always talk about when you get older in your career is like, what else can you talk about? To me, they had to humble themselves to come up with new content. I don't necessarily want to say that the whole cheating scandal was a ruse, but I find it that it was very not convenient. It was very interesting. It was a very interesting time frame to where when these people are at their best and you really can't say shit about them, that to come up with new content, they say like, we have to humble ourselves. We have to make ourselves seem like we're just like y'all. So we dealing with cheating too.
But that's interesting for a couple who never talks about anything in terms of like like Beyonce don't come out and like if something happened about the elevator scandal. Beyonce never said shit about that until she said that one line until of course it goes down when there's $1 billion in the elevator. Yeah. You know, she never talks about scandals.
They don't do it. Like they don't do interviews. Jay-Z hardly does interview. Beyonce, I haven't seen an interview Beyonce
in years.
And I think the only person that can bring her out is Oprah. So it's just like and like you know what I'm saying. So it's just like when you have to come up with new content, it's like, all right, we gotta humble ourselves. This cheating thing happened. If Jay-Z can cheat on Beyonce, all y'all women can get cheated on. Flat the fuck out. So now that makes women gravitate towards her more because it's like, now I feel even more connected to Beyonce because she's
not perfect.
She's not perfect. No one is perfect. The way that they brought her up. But they control the narrative because usually you'll expect like some TMZ shit to drop this shit. But it was themselves who did it. And obviously we got 3 great albums out of it. So my thoughts going...
We got 4.
We got 4 with Solange.
Okay.
And they have a theory about why Solange album came out the way it is too. But we ain't gonna touch on that because I support black women. Shout out to Solange. So when it comes to like this album and how the theme of it was about love, black love in particular. And going into it, the first track is gorgeous. I think that's the best song on the album, in my opinion. Summertime. It's called Summer. It's what I wanted to hear from a Jay-Z Beyonce album. It's like Beyonce doing her best singing and Jay-Z rapping so smooth. When we go after that, because it's only 9 tracks, so it goes in a vein of...
She started rapping and I thought that was weird.
I'm not a fan of Beyonce rapping. I know the Beehive can come at me and all that shit like Beyonce can't do it.
I don't like her rapping. I have to agree with that. Like,
to me, when I hear the best rapper and the best R&B artist they're doing an album together, I'm expecting to hear the best singing and the best rapping. I don't expect that rapping to come from the singer, just like I don't expect Hov to start crooning on the album too.
Like, let's take it back for a second. Remember when Beyonce did Diva and she was rapping on that? I even thought that was weird. She was going into a whole nother lane, so I get that. Every artist tries to, expand their horizons, things like that. But not to say she can't rap, but it's just weird hearing somebody who has such a gorgeous voice be like, all right, I'm just gonna rap now. And you know Beyonce probably not writing her own lyrics and stuff like that. That's not the problem, but
I won't go that far. I feel like Beyonce, I don't know. I don't know enough. I'll preface it by saying I have not heard the latest release. However, I do think that them two coming together, like, that shit is powerful. It means a lot for, like, a lot of people within the culture. Just in terms of her rapping, I think she's allowed to explore, especially if she's doing this shit with her husband. Like, right. I think she should be given that, like, that credence to explore.
But I'm saying, like, after the first song, that's when you start hearing it. And I'm not saying it's like, let's get this, out of 10, I would say this is like an 8.5. It's a really good album. I'm not gonna say it's a classic, because obviously, it just came out a week ago. I gotta give it more time to sit. But it's a really good album. Not great, but good. I just think that with it being 9 tracks, again, like with the whole Kanye's thing, the concept, you don't really have that much room for error. So when there is error, I have to call it out. The Ape Shit track, granted, it's gonna be a track that rocks in the club. It's my least favorite track on the album. Just for the fact that it's heavily Migos inspired.
Yeah,
It
Quavo did
sounds
it
like
better.
me. He said me. Quavo's in the
That's what I'm
background doing
saying, it's like-
ad-libs.
And the fact that they left Takeoff off of it is a sin to the Migos.
Takeoff is the best one.
Like Takeoff, bro, you deserve, bro. You should have been like, bro, either you take all of us, you take none of us. You know what I'm saying? Like the real.
Why do you always look
real
at Takeoff?
Migos, like what is it? One for all for one type shit. Like y'all kept Quavo on
always
Takeoff.
leave it
Like it's like,
Takeoff,
bro, chill
man.
out. But it's just like to me, a third of the album, and since it's only 9 tracks. A third is 3 songs. A third of the album was inspired by Atlanta sound. Amigo. I could say Friends and Nice. Obviously, the repetition of the vote. Nice is one of the best records on the album, but the repetition of the chorus sound reminds me of Atlanta. Just like with the beat of Friends, even though it's a good song, reminds me of Atlanta. So when I hear 2 artists who have the abundance amount of resources able to create an album, they're not innovating except recreating. It's acceptable to criticism because I expect innovation out of Jay-Z and Beyonce. I don't expect recreation. Because if I want to hear a good Migos record, like he said, Quavo does it better. You know what I'm saying?
All I'm saying is I'm not trying to hear Jay-Z old ass on trap beats personally. I think you're too old for that. I thought 444 was exactly what I needed from you to see what your growth is. But I think I see through their scams for real. Like, if you really look at it, like, the cover art was kind of like for them, but then like they whole topics was just like on some like ape shit and all that.
You talking about 4 for 4 or
I'm talking about like the new album.
this one. I
Like,
never saw the cover.
I'm just not buying it.
It's like a
every
black woman getting braiding the hair of a black man.
Oh, that's what that is? That was the
Yeah,
cover?
That's the cover art.
Oh, okay.
I'm not feeling that. I feel like every 2 years they drop and they just take advantage of all this. I think they're the greatest finessers in the game at this point.
Damn.
I think they are the greatest
That's some
finessers.
serious
I'm not
allegations.
trying to bash them. I'm not saying I agree fully with this, but I understand where he's coming from because, like I said, like these are the best artists of their field, and it seems like they're not
Allegedly.
pushing the limit.
Yeah.
If you're at
Allegedly.
okay, so I guess you're not gonna diss them, but it's just like to me, it's just like I expect so much more. Like when you see LeBron get on the court, you expect 30 points, 14 rebounds, 15 assists, a triple double, easy.
That's because he's playing with some bums.
Another story.
Another story.
And if you want to use it, we can go off of that. Is the field bums? Like, is Jay-Z and Beyonce's status so high is because the field is whack? Like, that's why
Who are their competitors?
Exactly.
That was a real question.
That's what I'm saying.
I was expecting answers.
I mean,
we don't have any.
some people will say, like, well, what about Rihanna? And I'm like, if you're talking about, I can't even say Rihanna because Rihanna and Beyonce don't really make the same type of music.
I really think that Beyonce kind of low-key copied off of Rihanna after like Good Girl Gone Bad.
I think Beyonce had to reinvent herself after the four album.
I was about to say, awfully convenient that Rihanna was doing this whole Good Girl Gone Bad thing, you know, rapping real suggestively, real sexual kind of.
Just be careful on your way out of here, man. The beehive is out there.
I know they is. I'm ready for him.
I'm not saying Beyonce is
awfully
copying.
convenient.
Yeah,
though,
I'm just saying that when it comes to my critique of this album, while it's a really good album and I can't really have that many faults with it, I expect more. I'm sorry. Just like I said the same thing for the Kanye Cudi album. It's good, but I expect more. Like, I enjoyed this album just as much as I enjoyed the Nas album, which they did slight by dropping it the day after Nas dropped this album, which is like, come on.
Convenience.
That's why I didn't listen to it. I was
They
listening
seen
to
them
Nas.
taking all that money. It's like, oh yeah, we need
No,
parts.
I think they did it because of the Khalees thing. I think there was like,
What Khalees thing?
like the fact that not like there's allegedly Khalees said that
He was abusing her.
and stuff like that. So I think like it's more like let's focus on Black love right now. Like this nigga is the talk of the town and he has accusations of being a woman beater. Let's show the other side of that, like of Black love, what it's supposed to be. And then they try to say like, oh, we dropped it around Juneteenth. Like nigga, if you want to drop it on Juneteenth, drop it on Juneteenth. Like you Jay-Z and Beyonce, you ain't gotta wait for no, like, she even said on the song, like, fuck Spotify streaming numbers. Like, if I would have cared about that, I would drop Lemonade on Spotify. If you would have cared about that, the nigga drop it Juneteenth on Juneteenth. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Like,
Call the album Juneteenth.
Why wait for Nas?
Call
Like,
the
seems
album
awfully
Juneteenth.
convenient. It also seems awfully convenient that Jay-Z dissed Drake in that song too as well. Like after 2 years of Drake saying that I wanted to be like Hov, now I turned into Hov or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, I used to want to be on Rockefeller until I became Hov.
Yeah, then he had a whole verse for him, and it's awfully convenient that now that Pusha T had dissed him and then just exposed him on the blackface and the
Take
kid
that
shit.
clout.
I won't say that because he dissed him on I Got the Keys. He said, until you own your shit, you can't be me. But I would say, like, this whole album was more about, like, all the shit talking that people have done to us, we're going to respond to that with quote-unquote love. So most of the album, like, you hear on records like Boss, or you hear on Friends, or you hear on Heard About Us and shit like that, you hear them coming at people, like throwing shots at people. Jay-Z said that the reason why I didn't go to Kanye's wedding is because I was dealing with my own shit. Like, if the house is burning down and she's in there, I'm going in the house to fuck everything else. Like, and granted, that's a great thing that a husband
were they going through their cheating thing?
That's
okay, that's what.
But obviously, in the interview with Charlamagne, Kanye said, like, if we family, you should have been here. Like you always say that we family. Like, why wasn't you at my wedding? And it's like, well, nigga, I was dealing with my own shit. So it's more about, like, what do you care about more, supporting your friend or supporting your marriage? That's a
whole nother argument.
That's a whole nother argument. So for me, with this album, it's really good. The tracks that I love, I mentioned earlier, is Nice, Summer, Friends, and Heard About Us. And granted, that's like half the album. So I mostly like the album.
That was 4 songs, and if there was 9, then you don't really like that album. You want to be technical. It was okay.
I'm just not falling for their shit no more. I'm sorry. I'm not falling for their shit. They drop every 2 years and then charge an arm and leg for the shows and shit. I'm cool on it. It was a good album though. Sorry.
That whole on the Run tour, part 2 and stuff like that.
I think it's a scam, personally.
They hid their babies for a year. It's like,
did she even have the baby?
No, that's why. I never like to say, like, bro, you ain't even. The only reason why I brought up that conspiracy about the trifecta is more of like, for you to get 3 albums off of one situation, or 4 albums technically, that's more than a coincidence.
We should do a conspiracy episode.
We should. It'll be dumb fire, and I feel like aliens and
we're gonna work on that for y'all. We're gonna do a conspiracy
we'll drop
episode
that for y'all. But all right, so like, I think everybody mostly like the album, or you have your quorums with it.
Yeah, I'm cool on it.
We can move on. So let's go back to this good music stuff. Well, I want to mention to the listeners, like, we're gonna do a part 2. So obviously we can't cover everything in one episode. So we're gonna definitely do a part 2. But the 2 questions that I have for this is, when we talk about the good music releases, there's a few artists that we forget that are actually on good music. Big Sean and Designer. Now, with Designer, Designer dropped a EP.
Panda.
He dropped The Life of Designer earlier this year, which nobody paid much attention to. Nobody really gives a... Designer, no offense, nobody gives a fuck about your career. So, like, I guess we can move off of Designer. Now, with Big Sean, I find it interesting because Big Sean is, I would say, easily, after like, as far as the current roster right now, is easily the best person after Kanye on good music.
Yeah.
Like, best artist.
Yeah.
Like, holistically. Now, if you want to talk about rapping-wise, obviously Pusha T, but if you're talking about a full package, who got the hits, who got bars and all that, it's Big Sean. Do y'all find it interesting that he was left off?
There has to be a reason. I do find it very interesting. It either has to be something that has to do with Big Sean. Well, he's still on good music, so I don't think it has nothing to do with that in terms of the relationship between the two of them. But either something is going on with Big Sean in terms of he's working on something else a little bigger. Because when was his last album? I can't remember.
It was like 2017.
He came out with something with Metro Boomin.
Yes.
Joint project.
Which I like that project.
I feel like that didn't get as much hype as it should have.
That's always
garbage. It was early.
Big Sean coming off of Dark Sky Paradise and...
But I feel like Big Sean never gets his recognition because I feel like even the Big Sean and the Jania Aiko album was a very good album.
I like that one.
That didn't
That was
get as much...
Beyonce and Jay-Z for sure.
It didn't get as much recognition as it should. So is it just Big Sean as an entity that he just doesn't have good marketing? Is it, what is it?
I think it's more because Big Sean is an artist where the argument could be, I've heard people do this type of records and I've heard them do it better. So to me, like, when you talk about Drake, the reason why he stands out is the music that he makes, he's the best that does it. The reason why we look at Kendrick, the music that he makes, right now he's the best that does it. With Big Sean, the music that he makes is a mix between that. Like, he is conscious, but he also is trendy rap too. But you've heard better on both sides.
Right.
So it's like, why do I go to Big Sean?
And he's not on one side or the other. He's in the middle.
He's
so
in the middle. And if I want to hear one of the other, I'd rather listen. If I want to hear a song about women and shit like that, or like some braggadocious shit, I'll listen to Drake. If I want to hear some ganja shit, I'll listen to Kendrick. Like, Big Sean is like the guy who gets out. Like, he's the odd man out.
Right.
Personally, I think Big Sean got bars. I think like he's definitely underrated. And since Kendrick kind of dropped that ether-ass verse on one of his projects back in 2014, when Control verse, like, I feel like Big Sean just been kind of getting skipped over for a lot of years. And
he had the best verse on that though.
Who?
Big Sean. On that Control, absolutely. Kendrick actually had the worst verse to me.
I disagree.
All right, man. He got this hot take.
I'm sorry. Like,
The room is hot right
I feel
now.
like
It's
name
very
dropping
hot.
doesn't necessarily get you any tucks with me. I'm sorry. And plus, Absol did it like 2 years before that anyway.
What is the reason that not Kendrick, Big Sean is being like left out the mix? If
I
it's supposed to be
wanna-
a good music summer,
I want to say this, and it's another hot take. I think he's dissing himself from Kanye and good music.
That's
Strategically.
I think he about to do his own thing.
Strategically, because once Kanye started hollering, everybody in Kanye's camps either somewhat defended him
Kinda
or,
like-
or kind of left. And granted, like Saha the Prince came out and said something in favor of Kanye. Chance the Rapper made that tweet saying black people don't have to be Democrats. Pusha T
did the whole interview with Big Boy on Big Boy.
talking about like you gotta like T.I. even came out like you know what I'm saying. People have come out and caped for Kanye. Big Sean was not one of those people.
say shit.
He hasn't saying Nathan about that, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because like some people say like where's your loyalty at, bro? That's your man. That's your man's. Nigga, when it comes to this money, nigga, I'm not fucking that up for no motherfucker. Especially if I'm already established. Big Sean is an already established artist. Like you mentioned, he has albums where people say like he got hit records. Like he can go off tour off the albums that he already dropped. So
And you have to be conscious of that too. We were talking about in the last episode how Kanye can kind of say anything and still sell records. Big Sean might say something and it might fuck up his whole like demographic that he got going on. So he can't say any and everything.
Big Sean don't have the same ego as niggas like Kanye do. So like
at all.
I feel like Big Sean is way more down to earth than
and
the rest
Big
of
Sean
the
can't talk shit like that either. Because if he talks shit, what can you say? You already mentioned it.
You got
Kendrick
ether,
spanked
bro.
your ass on control. Even though you say you disagree, a lot of motherfuckers think Kendrick spanked his ass, and then also Kendrick spanked his ass again with Humble, because people say Humble was directed at Big Sean, saying sit your bit like what do you say? Be humble, sit down, motherfucker. Like
I give you Humble.
They have
I ain't
beef?
going for control.
The two of them have beef with each other.
it's like
It's
subtle. It's very subtle.
Yeah,
it's very subtle.
yeah.
I'm gonna ask you why when we're
But it's
done
just,
with
but
the
it's just like to me, it's like it's strategically in his favor, and I would say I would do the same thing in my career. There's no way you can excuse Kanye for the Trump shit. So why am I even gonna come out? And second of all, I'm gonna distance myself from this motherfucker because Kanye really hasn't done much for Big Sean, just like Jay-Z hasn't done that much for J. Cole. If you want to talk about, they put him on, but as far as like. Because remember when Kanye produced, like, when he was really helping people get on with John Legend, he would produce most of their album. When he did the same thing with Common, he brought their flame back. With Big Sean, outside of Dark Side Paradise, where Kanye was very, like, on the album, Big Sean's records don't really have Kanye or have shit to do with Kanye on it. So I think he looking at it like, nigga, I really don't need you. So right now you saying some wild shit, and I'm going to step back until you get your shit together. I ain't fucking with you.
Personally, I think Big Sean is still up there. I would still put Big Sean in my top 5. Personally, I think this nigga has bars. A lot of people might disagree with me. I think when Big Sean was kind of coming out, he was coming out in that same time frame as like Kendrick, Cole, Wale, all of them type dudes. Like Drake, all of them came out in the same particular era. Drake, Kendrick, and Cole, they kind of transcended. They at the top tier, they A-list. Then Big Sean and Wale, they kind of somewhere.
B-list.
I would put A$AP Rocky in that B-list.
A$AP Rocky
B-list,
kind of
yeah.
in that same mode. So like, you know, they're there and they've been on the game for a minute.
If
but
they drop something, you're gonna listen.
You're gonna
like,
listen, but they're not gonna be like, you know, I gotta get the latest record, the latest Big Sean record. Evidenced by like nobody knew about that Big Sean Metro Boomin record, and I thought that shit was pretty cool.
I liked it.
It was garbage.
Okay.
And as you can see, it was the end of Metro Boomin. If you want to be, it's hot in here. It's hot takes all day. I'm sweating. Like, real talk. We haven't heard. When was the last time Metro Boomin like?
It was a couple months ago. Give him a chance. It's summertime. Come with something.
This is where everybody dropping in the summertime.
It's the best time to
summertime is
drop
for hip
music.
hop.
Yeah.
The summertime is for hip hop.
Because people be in the street just playing stuff playing that shit out their cars and stuff. Drop
to me,
it.
it's like that's when Metro was like, all right, I'm done with these collab albums with these niggas. Like, I'm helping these niggas more than they helping me.
And that's when y'all realize I fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's a good question, but I think he has a good answer. I don't really fuck with Kanye right now.
Yeah.
You can't do
I
that.
can't.
Respect that.
I mean,
Because I can't see Kanye not going up to Big Sean like, hey, I'm doing
we
an album
doing
for everybody. Yeah, we doing 7s for everybody. You in?
Sean was like, nah, I'm cool, bro. Just drop your instrumentals right here. He hit him with that, I'm good, love, enjoy. Like, I'm good, enjoy, love, like type shit. Like, he was like, nah, bro, I'm good on that shit. Like,
I mean, too, he don't really fit like. Big Sean kind of is an anomaly with the rest of the good music crew in terms of like when you release and push, then Kanye's album, then Kid Cudi. Big Sean don't really fit there. Like, I just don't really make sense to put
Well,
him
you could
in there.
argue Nas don't fit in that release.
You could argue that as well.
Right.
Like, I really didn't see that shit coming, but you know.
Yeah. All right, I mean, shit. We're on the hot takes. We gotta cool off a little bit. So right now, we go end it on this note. Follow us at NDR513 on Instagram. Follow us at No Disrespect on Facebook.
Tell us what topics you want us to talk about. We would love to hear it. Interact with us on social media, all that good stuff.
And y'all want to promote anything going on with y'all?
Follow Kirk Cooks.
I just
got
wanna
y'all
say-
with the meal plans.
Yeah, I just want to say shout out to Etta Lawson, R.I.P.
Oh shit! R.I.P. If y'all, for those who don't know Etta Lawson, she was someone who was a big staple in my community, the Woodline. She helped raise me and AJ. So shout out to her. She passed a few months ago, so we want to give big respects out to her. But just shout out to all Black women in general. This is a random shout out, but from my African sister Ashley Acuna, I think that's her name. She got a YouTube series called The Grapevine. Check that out. I've been watching shit on that all day. They've been having good topics and shit. So check that out. Support all black podcasts like this one.
Black businesses.
Black businesses as much as you can. Again, Nick is on his black pro-black shit. So you're gonna be hearing this a lot. So that's
Wakanda forever.
That's us for this week. Catch us next week. Holla.
Bye.
Peace.